we talk with Keely McNeal, who is a true entrepreneur. Keely was running a cleaning business and starting a family when she became a 2023 Rookie of the Year finalist recognized by RAS Media. She closed an astounding 38 transactions her first year, utilizing her sphere of influence, social media, and open houses. Stick around to hear her inspiring story.
Welcome to Unlocking Real Estate, My First Commission, where we dive into real stories, big wins, and early lessons learned from highly successful rookie real estate agents and brokers. This is the series where we explore how real estate transforms lives, one home at a time, by sitting down each week with a new agent or broker who has found incredible success in their first year. Your hosts are instructors and leaders at Colibri Real Estate School, one of the largest real estate educators in the nation, where we focus on helping people like you get started or find continued success in their careers.
Hello, and welcome to Unlocking Real Estate, My First Commission. I'm your host, Tina Lapp. I have been in real estate education for over 30 years, helping individuals enter and thrive in their real estate careers.
Hi, Tina. It's good to be back with you. My name is Mark Ruff, and I'm an instructor here at the school. I received my real estate sales license in California in 1988, my broker's license in 1996, and I'm a licensed real estate instructor in the state of Washington. It's good to be back with you, Tina.
Thank you, Mark. And they've got to stick with us today.
It's going to be fun.
Right? We talk with Keely McNeal, who is a true entrepreneur. Keely was running a cleaning business and starting a family when she became a 2023 Rookie of the Year finalist recognized by RAS Media. She closed an astounding 38 transactions her first year, utilizing her sphere of influence, social media, and open houses. Stick around to hear her inspiring story. We are here today with Keely McNeal. Keely, will you take a moment to introduce yourself, where you're from, and what company you're with?
Yeah, so I am, I almost said 28. I'm 29. I just turned 29 this year. I'm originally from Florida, but I currently am in the North Atlanta region, and I'm with Coldwell Banker as of the last 6 months. So a little new to the brokerage, but it's been great.
Thanks for that, Keely. You know I'm always curious when Tina and I get together and we have these chats, and I know our audience is curious as well. Tell us, what were you doing before you got in real estate?
Gosh, I was kind of all over the place. That's a good answer, because I was trying to really figure out what I wanted to do. I remember leaving high school and I was like, I'm going to go to college and this is the degree I'm going to get. And then I switched my degree like 5 different times, and then realized that it was something in me that didn't want to do the corporate or the 9-to-5, like any kind of avenue I feel like I was taking going that route. So I actually ended up starting some businesses where I was at in Florida before I came here. And I started a successful cleaning business, which was big over there because there's a lot of vacation rentals. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. She's going away. So I started the cleaning business, and that was very successful. It was great. And I loved the side of it of basically just doing my own thing. And I think I'm just a natural entrepreneur. So that's what I was doing. I was kind of all over, and it was steady. It was fine, but I still felt like I was kind of missing something. And that's how I started to stumble into real estate.
Got it. Thanks for that. Was there kind of like a moment or an event, like a moment that inspired you to kind of make that switch and kind of come over and do the real estate thing?
I think it was because I was doing the cleaning side of it and helping owners with like their turnover, and I was meeting people that owned these properties, and so I already kind of had those relationships, and so I felt like I was learning the ins and outs of like who owned these properties, building those relationships, and more than an event, it was really just those people. And then also I had some really good friends that had a team that would literally call me every week and say, you need to go get your license. Like, we think you'd be great at this. Please get your license and come work with us. And so it was really like a pool of my friends saying I'd be good at it. And I was like, what do I have to lose? So it was that. And then just having some relationships from another business.
Got it. Was there a particular person, perhaps one specific individual who may have lit that spark or that flame for you?
Yeah, I guess it would be, well, as far as the team goes and my friends, it was Gabriel was his name. He was with Keller Williams when I joined the team, but it was just the motivation of like I was seeing them be successful, and seeing that I liked the way they were doing things. And I feel like just putting myself in that environment every now and then, with all of them being in real estate and just hearing the conversations, I think that was a big factor. I didn't go in feeling as scared as I think a lot of new agents do, because I had the people around me that were killing it. And so that I think helped me a lot too.
Got it, Keely. Thanks for that.
Yeah, so Keely, walk us through the process. You decide real estate's the thing. You're going to give it a try. You're running this cleaning business. How'd you get started? How'd you take classes? Did you go in person? Walk us through that process.
Yeah, so I am a go-getter. And when I decide I want to do something, I'm going to do it right now. And I'm not going to wait, which I think is great. Sometimes it's not the best, but in this case, it worked out well. My friends that were encouraging me to get in, they actually led me to the class that I did end up taking. And in Florida, it was a 4-day in-person class. And well, I prefer in-person learning. I know they had the online, but in-person for me, I was like, okay, 4 days, I'm going to go in 9 to 5, I'm going to learn, I'm going to get it done. So I went a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday class, and then took my test the next week in Florida, and I passed. So it took like 6 days, I guess, to fully get licensed. So I really just dove into it, and that class was amazing. I mean, that instructor was great. So I think it really is important where you decide to go, and there are so many options, but I'm glad that I did have some guidance on who would be good as far as a teacher in a class goes.
And were you also working during that time while you were going through the classes?
So I was still actively doing the cleaning business. I was kind of phasing out, and I ended up selling it. So I actually had built up that clientele and had the connections from there to say, okay, I'm going to dive in. When I started real estate, I went full force. I went straight in because I knew that I needed to put all my attention on it. I needed to learn everything. So I was still doing that, but I never was the one that was like in the houses cleaning. It was more of like I was managing some cleaners and, paying them and just kind of being the boss, and then was able to sell that clientele for the cleaning business and then just go straight into real estate. So yeah, I was working, but it was not, I needed to be there every day in person. So that was nice.
Yeah, and you got through the classes pretty quickly. So how long from the time you started classes till the time you actually got licensed?
Oh, it was literally a week. It was crazy fast. And I think that the misconception too, it just depends on where you go, right? I think I liked the idea of the in-person because I was like, well, if I try to do this online, I'm going to do an hour a day. I'm going to, have other stuff to do. And so that's why I decided I'm just going to pull the trigger and I'm just going to go. And it was an 8-9 hour day for 4 days straight. But I'm like, okay, if I can learn everything and have a teacher in front of me to tell me, everything I need to know, then I think I'll be fine. And it was literally that next week I decided it was fresh on my mind. I'm going to go take the test. I just had all the information, presented to me, and it was crazy. It was crazy. I passed the first time and I was still in shock. I was like, I don't know how this just happened, but it was awesome. It was awesome.
That is incredible. So you pretty much just cleared your schedule and committed to these classes, got through super quickly, got to the state exam. Now you find yourself licensed. Like, what was the biggest challenge? Was it just clearing your schedule, like just making the time for it?
I think it was that. And I think anytime you start something new, there's a lot of self-doubt and a lot of nerves. And am I doing the right thing? I was already pretty successful with what I was doing. I had plans to grow that. But like I said, I just felt like I was missing that. I loved the relationships that I was forming with these owners, and I wanted to have a job where I could be closer to them and, help them with these investments and guide them in that way. So I don't know. I feel like it just I just had this passion to do it. And like I said, I'm a little crazy. So I was like, I know I'm going to do it. But it was definitely, I think like most new people, you feel very scared because you're going from, a lot of people go from corporate 9-to-5 jobs and they're going into something that is, you're not getting paid until you close a deal. And like I said, I'm very thankful for the people that encouraged me, because without them, I probably wouldn't have jumped into it because I wouldn't have had that support, and that would have been scary. So very thankful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Keely. One of the classes that I teach here in the school is called Real Estate Practice. And what we do in practice is we teach students the ins and outs of the day-to-day kind of expectations of what they're going to get themselves into once they're licensed. What was your first year's expectation going into the business in terms of maybe your expected income that you maybe had a goal to achieve, or perhaps the number of units that you closed? Tina and I were chatting before the podcast started. It's our understanding that you closed 38 transactions your first year. Was that your expectation?
No, not at all.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, no, it was very, very exciting. I feel like I think it was helpful that I didn't put expectations on myself, because I'm also one of those people that if I don't hit the goals that I want, it's not very beneficial. I start beating myself up and I'm like, should I quit? So I just really went in with an open mind, and more of, I want to close 20 deals. It was more, I want to be a student. I want to learn everything that I can. And I know that if I put myself in the right places with the right people, that things will end up happening. And I'm not saying things just will fall in your lap with that, but you got to do the work. And I think putting in that legwork and just showing up every day was the one thing that I think really was the difference. I think a lot of people get into it and they think, like, everyone thinks our job's easy. So they get into it and think I'm going to make easy money. And it's a 24-hour job most of the time. Like it's nonstop. So it was great.
Thanks for that. Now, once you got your license fairly quickly. Once you got your license, then you hit the ground running. How long did it take you to close your first transaction from start to right? From the time you got your license and you got it hung until you got the wire transfer hit your account? How long did that take?
That was probably right at 3 months.
3 months. Okay.
Yeah. And it actually was a good friend of mine that I went to church with. And I ended up just telling everybody I was getting my license. And she was, I'm going to give you a chance. And I know that you're motivated. You'll take care of me. So, of course, the best clients are when there are people that you know and you already have that relationship. So it was pretty quick because she already knew she needed someone and thought about me. So it's pretty quick.
Got it. So another thing that we teach in practice is what you're talking about, called the sphere of influence, right? We want to dig deeply into that database. Now, once you got started then, how did you establish your credibility to the market? How did you kind of boost your cred?
Gosh. Social media was great for me. I think that's always been my strong suit. And I've just really leaned into that. And it's funny because the guy whose team I joined, cold caller all day. He was calling people. He loved it. And I love talking to people, but I was like, I'm not picking up the phone and calling random people. Like, I'm not doing that. And it's almost like social media was, you are doing that, but you're not, it's no pressure, right? Like I was able to create videos and posts that were reaching thousands, tens of thousands of people. And I actually was getting people that would call me from that and say, I loved this video, or, I'm in this situation that you mentioned. Can you help me? So social media has been, I would say, my number one tool. And then of course, just my sphere as well and tapping into that. But social media has been my number one, I would say.
Got it. So thanks for that, because a lot of people, what they'll do, agents, is they'll post social media posts, but they won't attach the video component. And so it doesn't really get a lot of juice. So you attached videos to most of your posts? Is that kind of what got the lead generated? Yeah,
I think that you have to show your personality, right? There's so many agents in my state, in my city, we're everywhere. So I think you have to find something to set yourself apart. And it was really just showing a day in the life, showing the bad side too, showing a deal falling apart, or just being relatable and being a mom, like all of the things that would connect you with somebody else. It might not even be real estate. I've had friends that they found me on Facebook. They were moms. They asked me about baby stuff. And then 2 months later, they needed to buy a house and they thought of me because we had that conversation. So it wasn't always just real estate content. It was just putting my personality and my home life, matching that with my career and putting it all in a special little ball. And and it was great.
So what I'm hearing is authenticity, genuineness. Were there any other kind of marketing channels, perhaps, Keely, other than social media or your sphere of influence that may have led and helped you succeed, other than those two kind of buckets?
I did hop on open houses for a while. For the first year, I did those a lot because, well, when you're not that busy, when you first start, you're like, what can I do? So I did kind of master that, which is very helpful now that the market has shifted this year, doing a lot more open houses. And so it's been fun to go back and do those again. But open houses were a great way to, I feel like, build confidence because you were there, you were seeing people face to face, not just on the phone. And it just was about the reps and doing it over and over again. And I think that was great too.
Got it. So then kind of social media, sphere of influence, perhaps maybe for going after sellers, open houses, perhaps going after buyers. Was there a particular focus in a specific audience or a specific target market that you may have selected in that first year? Was it primarily sellers?
It was, you know what, I haven't, my first year, it was kind of all over the place. And I think that was a lesson that now I look back on. And now that I am successful and it's been great, I've got a coach that's like, hey, let's look at how to grow from that really good year. And we go back and I'm like, I think how to grow is to have a real plan in place. And I think my first year, I was kind of just trying to grab from everywhere because I was a new agent and I wanted to work with everybody. And so that's something, maybe I would have changed. But now that I am where I am, I'm grateful because I got to help sellers, buyers, people relocating. First time I got a little bit of everything. And that helped me to realize what I like to do, what I'm good at, and just learn how to market to all of them. And now that I'm a couple years in.
Got it, Keely. Thanks for that.
Yeah, Keely, so your first year, here you are, you're a new agent, you're figuring all this out. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced? Our listeners are nervous, right? Like what's the first year going to bring? What were some of the challenges and how'd you manage through it?
I think the biggest challenge was, well, if you don't go in without planning on spending money, that's one thing. I think going in and knowing that it's going to cost money, you're building a business. And I think a lot of people don't realize that it is a business. You're self-employed. Even though it's just, I'm getting my license, I'm going to do this. It's a full business. And that's another thing I'm learning a couple years in is, saving money for taxes, putting money in savings, business expenses, learning all of that and learning that you truly are a business was a challenge for sure. And I would also say just confidence. I think now that I see where I am and I'm not so scared to do those things. My first year, I was more hesitant and I didn't know what I was doing. And I think that's why it's also super important to have a mentor, join the team, or have a great broker that's going to answer the phone and talk to you about things and hold your hand a little bit. I remember having my first really big listing. It was like 1.3 million, maybe it was a little over $1 million. And I was so scared. It's like, I don't know if I can do this. And I really fully relied on my broker. I mean, he helped me put together a whole, listing packet and how I was going to present myself and what the marketing plan was going to look like. And I owe a lot to a lot of people that ended up helping me. And I think that's so important when you're new. It's just not trying to do it on your own, having good help with people that know what they're doing.
Yeah, that's great advice. And so you definitely relied on your broker, your other team members. It sounds like, you had a support system for sure, leaning in and helping you. That's great. What else, how'd you balance your work family life?
This question's so hard because I feel like I don't do a great job at it, but I feel like that's just real estate in general. I mean, one day this week's been crazy. I've been, 7 a.m. I'll leave the house to go do stuff and I won't get back till 7 p.m. and my kids are getting ready for bed and that's really hard. But, next week, now that I've gotten all this done this week, it might be a slower time and I get to hang out with my kids more. So I think there's a balance that's kind of kind of day to day, week to week. I mean, the seasons too for us, like the winter time's usually slower. And so I really know now that I can take those winter vacations with my kids and we can enjoy Christmas and New Year's. And maybe the summer is going to be a little crazy. So you just have to learn, when you're busy, get the stuff done and know that it's not going to be a great balance at that time. But then when you do have the time to spend with your family, you have to really value it and take it in. And at that point, try to put your phone down, but that's hard. That's very hard.
Yeah. Well, and we have a lot of listeners out there who have young kids at home and they're thinking, gosh, can I do this? Will I be able to figure it out? And you have young kids at home, right? Like, I don't think we talked about that yet, but why don't you share a little bit about, your kids and your sort of your life as you went into real estate?
Yeah. So I guess another challenge would have been when I started, I was literally pregnant with my first son. So that was another challenge. I leaned on a lot of people, like I said, that I had tons of help. So that was great. I think if you don't have the help, it can be overwhelming. But what I'll say too about having kids is they motivate you so much. And you think, okay, this is going to be, they're going to be expensive. I'm not going to have much time to work. And like, how am I going to do it? When I had my kids, I mean, everything tripled for me, money-wise, client-wise. And it was just I need to provide for them. I need to get ready for their future, for our future. So they made me more motivated and driven, which is great. But we do have family that helps. You've got to line that up too, because you do have to work. And so I think, just being realistic with it and also knowing, yes, real estate can be very flexible, which is great for having kids, but if you do want to be successful in it, it's going to take a lot of your time. And I think for the first couple of years, if you understand that, you'll be okay. But the great thing about real estate is once you take those couple of years and you really grind and you stay really busy, the years after that, you don't have to do that. You have people coming in, you have repeat clients, and you're not feeling like you have to hit the pavement every day and meet new people because you've got repeat clients and you've got word of mouth and those things in place. So I think it's just hit it for the first couple of years. And if you do it right, it's gonna really take care of you.
That's great advice. So you're in your first year, you're rocking it, you're moving along, you're getting help where you need it. We all make mistakes. Like, anything that stands out from your early days that was a learning experience, maybe funny, maybe, anything that you remember from your first year?
Oh no, sorry, I lost you for a second.
That's okay. We'll edit that out. But so from your first year, any memorable or funny experiences, maybe a transaction that, didn't work out right, or if something funny you had to do for a client that you remember?
Yeah. So, a mistake I made when I was at a showing one time was these super lock boxes just drive me absolutely insane. But I ended up, if you know anything about super, or you will when you start real estate, you've got to have a Bluetooth device to open up the lockbox. And so I had my phone and I got in okay. And I was distracted because, of course, I was talking to my clients and we were looking around the house and they loved it. So we walked out of the house and I locked the super up and my phone was inside still. So I basically locked my phone in the house, couldn't get it out because the key was in the lockbox and I had no way to get back in the lockbox. So that was a fun time. And my poor clients are like, should we wait for someone to come help you get your phone, or should we? And I'm like, don't even worry about it. It's fine. But that was like the scare. I was just like, oh, now I have to call the listing agent. But how do I call the listing agent? Because I don't have my phone. So it was like borrowing their phone and having to bother people. I felt so bad, but it was very embarrassing too, because I was like fairly new and I'm like, they probably think I have no idea what I'm doing. So keep your stuff in your pockets, because I like to set it on the counter and like start to, I talk with my hands and I'm walking around, and then you get into it and you totally forget, and don't recommend.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Real people, real things happen. That's a great example. That's a great story. So how do you build relationships with your clients? Like, when you some you already knew, but when you met new clients, maybe at an open house, like how'd you cultivate that relationship?
I would say I focused more on the person than the transaction. And so for me, and I think that's really hard to do when you're new because you do need to get paid and you need money, and that is a motivator. But I think for me, I learned really quickly that there was a lot of agents that chased the money and intimidated clients, and they ended up not feeling comfortable working with them. And I saw that a couple times with other agents. I remember telling myself, even if I need the money, I'm going to just focus on, is this the best house for them? Is selling the best option? And I mean, there were times in my first year where I was really hoping that selling was going to be the great thing and I was going to get this listing, and it ended up not being the right decision. But just being honest and telling them that and saying, I think you should wait several months, or I think you should rent instead of sell. I mean, all of the options, they ended up being clients in the end, whether it was years later or months later, or I would get referrals from them. So I think the biggest thing is making sure that they know that y'all, it is storming so bad outside. Did you just hear that thunder?
Yeah, I did actually.
Y'all, it is coming down. I'm in the conference room and it's like, sorry, it's pouring rain. But yeah, I think just focusing on like building the relationship, you focus on the relationship. You don't focus on when am I going to have a paycheck? When am I going to, close? Yeah. And for me, that was just never the goal. And people can tell, like they know when you're being genuine and when you're focused on them and their best case scenario versus just trying to get to the closing table and you don't really care. So yeah, I think just really listening to their needs, listening to their wants, and understanding what they need will make them trust you over and over again and give you their time and even pay you to help them. They want you and they need you.
Yeah. Are there any particular client interactions that stand out to you or were particularly emotional, or just any stories from a particular client interaction?
Yeah, so I actually in the past helped it was a referral from a closing that I had, or client that I had. It was one of their friends, and he actually was a homeless veteran. And so it was a crazy scenario between working with the VA and getting him, the awards that he did have and getting him paid through the VA and finding him a lender that would work with him. We ended up getting $20,000 in closing costs for him. He didn't have a down payment with the VA. It was an amazing experience. And I just remember feeling then like, this is the purpose, this is the point. This is why we do what we do and we are needed. It was literally a man who was living in his car who has served our country. And my dad's military, my whole family is. So for me, it was just like, I can't believe that we have somebody that's done this and is in this position. And I worked for 4 to 5 months just to get him approved with somebody, and then worked 2 months after that to make sure we got to the closing because the appraisal was bad. It was just a whole mess. But I remember him, at closing just crying and being so thankful. And, I was like the third agent that helped him because everyone said that there was no point. And I think that's another thing about being an agent is you've got to be resilient, you've got to try to go through every avenue for people. And that's another way to build relationships. You put the work in. And I just remember, I just feel like all crying at closing. And I'm like, but like truly getting somebody into a house that didn't have a house was so eye-opening. And I think the best, most rewarding experience that I've had so far.
Thank you for sharing that story. And it is what the reason why so many people love real estate is helping people realize their dreams. And that's a great story. And thank you for sharing it.
Yeah. Keely, thanks for that. What is coming down to here clearly for Tina and I is that what we're hearing is putting the client first, helping the public achieve the dream of home ownership, regardless of a client's background. What a great story. Now, you closed 38 transactions your first year. Now, I know agents who have been in this business for 10 and 20 years who don't close 38 transactions per year. Can you tell me, where do you see yourself maybe in the next 5 years? 38 transactions, year one, you're moving forward in the business. What does that picture look like 5 years hence?
I would definitely love to have a full-time assistant.
You're gonna need it.
Yes, somebody that can definitely do a lot of the work that we can pass on. I would like to just mainly be client facing and not have to worry about a lot of the marketing pieces and, just the things that we can kind of automate. And I still want humans there. Like I want somebody that is going to be able to help me build those relationships. So that's why I think having an assistant that also has the same mentality as me would be important. And maybe, I don't know, being on a team, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about, what team members need, how to grow a team so that people feel valued and they want to stay and not just, go through a team and leave. And I've seen that too. So I think possibly having a team, but I think I would like it to be small. I think having, maybe one or two newer buyer's agents and being able to bring them on and pass some of the business. If I'm so busy, pass them business and bless them with that, but also teach them how to do what I've done. And I don't know, I'm hoping that if I do that, I can retire kind of young and still have a team and maybe even do less of the work. And that would be awesome. And I could see my kids and grow, see them grow up, but we'll see. It's big goals. So
Fantastic. Well, good luck on that. Now, do you have any tips maybe or some ideas or perhaps some lessons or some strategies maybe that you could kind of help advise new aspiring real estate agents? What did you learn, especially that first year, that somebody else could apply?
Yeah. So I try to always say that. I tell a lot of people this, but I try to not say it in a mean way. There's a lot of real estate agents, but there's not a lot of good real estate agents. And I think that when you go into it and you feel like you're competing with thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, it's very, very intimidating. But like you said, a lot of agents that have been in for a long time, they haven't really closed a lot of deals and they're hanging on to that license. And I think it's less intimidating to go into it as a new agent, knowing that you might only be competing with 2% of those agents, because those are really the good ones. And I wish I knew that when I started, because I think that would have given me more confidence because I knew I was working.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that, Keely.
Yeah.
So Keely, we're going to jump into our lightning round. I'm going to ask a question, provide your immediate thoughts, 60 seconds or less, couple of quick hitters. So the first one I'm going to ask, is there a book or a podcast that you've listened to that you'd recommend for the audience and why?
Yes, I have one of both because I love to listen to podcasts. We're always in the car, so you gotta have one. The book that I love is People by You. So, it's a good sales book. It's a good business book for us as agents because we're selling ourselves to people. So great book, People by You. And then the podcast I really like is called Hustle Humbly. And it's two real estate agents that are in Louisiana and they are in different brokerages, but they collaborate that way. And they just have, as a new agent, a great place to go. They've got really good tips and tricks and, they'll teach you about open houses. They'll teach you about lead generation and they're very organic. So it's a really good podcast.
That's great. Great tip for the audience. So if we had a time machine and you could go back to the day you started this journey, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, it probably would be to treat real estate more like a business than, because like I mentioned, I was kind of all over the place. And I think now that I've been a couple years in, I'm seeing more success from staying consistent with a couple things and, trying to go after certain leads or a certain neighborhood and having more of a purpose with marketing versus just kind of throwing things everywhere. I think that's what I would do differently and build my brand that way.
Good advice. If we only knew then what we know now, right? Yeah. If you could have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
This is not even real estate related. Okay. But I love Taylor Swift and I would so have dinner. She is my favorite. My husband would just die if he's like, he knows all of her songs because I make him listen to her. But I just love her. And I think if she goes on tour, and I think it's not a real estate thing, but just a generosity thing and the way that she takes care of the people that take care of her. And I think that is to me so important because that's what I want to do. You can't grow and you're only as good as the people that are around you. And I think if you're blessing those people, you're going to be blessed and you're going to be able to take care of your family and the people that are close to you because of that. So that's why she motivates me too. But I love her.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's a great one. I think it's awesome. So tell us about your day yesterday. What'd you do for work?
Today or yesterday was a crazy day. I put out some flyers because I got an amendment to address concerns for a listing. That was fun. So I had to get some repairs quoted and did that for a listing. I got a buyer under contract, which was exciting. We did staging for a listing I have coming up next week. So I went by and let the stagers in and did all that, scheduled pictures for that. Gosh, what else did I do? Oh, I set a listing appointment for Saturday. So I talked to a potential seller. So yeah, that was in the car while I was driving to all the other things. So that's what my day pretty much looked like.
Wow. And it's great insight into what a day in real estate should look like. I mean, that's all good stuff. That's great. And I'm tired just hearing it. So that's awesome. Keely, where can listeners or viewers find you and connect with you to follow your journey?
So I am pretty active on Instagram and TikTok because I like my videos. But Instagram, my handle is, if you search Keely McNeal, you'll find me, but my handle is relocating to Georgia. And then my TikTok is just Realtor Keely. It's my username for that one.
Perfect. Thank you.
Got it. Well, Keely McNeal from Alpharetta, Georgia, has been our guest today. Welcome. We're very grateful that you spent a little bit of time with us. Keely closed 38 transactions her very first year, which is phenomenal. People have been in this business for years and years and years and don't reach that level of production. She got into the business when she was pregnant with her first child. She subsequently had 2 more children, 2 twins. She's got her hands full with 3 boys. I have 2 boys. I know what that is like. She's there in Alpharetta, Georgia. Thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with us. We really enjoyed it. I know that your conversation is going to be inspiring, not only to me, but to other people who are watching the show. Thank you very much for being with us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Keely.
Thanks for tuning in to Unlocking Real Estate, My First Commission. We hope today's stories and insights inspired you to take that next step in your real estate journey. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode, or head over to our channel to see some of the other content we've produced. We'd also love to hear from you. Drop a comment below with your biggest takeaway or a question for our next guest. If you have a recommendation for someone we should interview, please send a note to unlockingrealestate@colibrirealestate.com.